And the crowd goes crazy as the candidate Donald Trump says, "We will obtain peace through strength."
Peace through strength. We won't have to fight the war.
Kind of feels like a WWE wrestling match where Stone Cold Steve Austin out-toughs the other guy. But in the real world, it's much more serious than that. The other day, the so-called peace candidate bragged on Twitter about bombing Houthis who were gathered in a tribal circle. And ever since he has designated the Houthis a terrorist group, he's been bombing away while a lot of his online supporters have been echoing that slogan he said on the campaign trail. This is peace through strength. Peace through strength. It sounds noble, right? But is it a philosophy of deterrence or a recipe for perpetual conflict? Is a heavily armed nation truly safer or just louder? And when strength becomes the only language we speak, who's really listening for peace? Joining us to discuss Donald Trump's foreign policy is Executive Director of the Ron Paul Institute, co-host of the Ron Paul Liberty Report, Daniel McAdams. Daniel, thank you for joining us today. I really do appreciate you coming on. We hear the Trump administration, especially when they were on the campaign trail, you'd hear Donald Trump say, "And we will obtain peace through strength with all our allies." That term, I think it was made popular by Ronald Reagan. It can mean a lot to a lot of people. But is that such a thing? Could that be possible that we can obtain peace through strength? Or is this just more or less the same foreign policy we've always seen, no matter who's in the White House?
Well, we look back to the Gipper on this, peace through strength, and it was the slogan of his presidency. And, it signifies a couple of things from the Reagan administration. Now, the first of all was the mindless buildup of the military in the U.S. with the intent, supposedly, to outspend the Soviet Union and thus destroy them. And although the neocons who crafted this policy took credit, we took down the Soviet Union because we spent so much on the military that scared the heck out of them. It's absolutely not true. I mean, the Soviet Union, the Soviet system was disintegrating from the get-go, what have you, but certainly by the 80s it was. But they like to take credit for it on the one hand, so they'll take credit for that. But on the other hand, the peace through strength that I remember best from the Reagan administration was when President Reagan was willing to go to Reykjavik against the advice of all of his neocon advisors. They were furious. That's when they broke with Reagan, who, by the way, let them in his administration, stupidly, not unlike Trump did. But they were furious. So he was willing to talk with his adversary, and that set the stage for what happened in 89 and 90 and 91. So there are two aspects of it. What I think the neocons of today are doing, I know Trump says it, but it's the people around him are saying it. They're trying to wrap themselves in this Reagan mantle. Yes, they like the strength part, but they're wrong on both, because they're not for peace, because they're bombing the hell out of a lot of places like Yemen, et cetera now. And they're really not into the strength, because we've seen the strength of U.S. weapons in Ukraine. They've not matched Russian weapons in Ukraine. So what we have is a nice bumper sticker, but what we get in reality is neither.
Daniel, again, love the work you guys do at Ron Paul Institute. And on a theoretical level, I tend to agree with you mostly. But also, I've been to California, and I love it. And I've been to Nevada, and I love it. And I've been west of the 13 colonies. And those were all obtained at one point by what I'm sure something, if it was today, you would disagree with, correct?
Oh, you mean different treaties and invasions and things of that nature?
Correct, yeah.
Well, that's fine. I mean, I'm sitting here in Texas. I wish we were still a republic, I mean, I'm all for the great divorce. I think we need to break up.
Sure.
There was manifest destiny at that period of time. Was it good? Was it bad? Probably a little bit of both. But what we're ready for right now is a big divorce, man. You go your own way and I'll go mine.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that I'll be going to the 51st state of Greenland in 50 years, and everybody will be very happy that we have it.
Bring your coat, man. Just bring your coat. That's all you need to do.
Well, I mean, we would look. All jokes aside, this is a global government, right? And do you believe that we have any reason to secure resources globally? Do you believe that we should be engaging in resource allocation on a global level?
Well, who's we? I mean, I'm not getting any global resources. I mean, I'm not a socialist. So I don't believe in a we. I mean, if there are some businessmen that want to do business in Greenland, that's fine. That's great. I don't like the federal government acquiring more power, acquiring businesses, acting as a business. There's a word for that, and it starts with an F, and it's not a short F word, but it's a longer one. So I don't go for the we. I don't get it. It doesn't help me. I'm not getting anything. I'm over here doing my taxes today. Let me tell you, it's ugly.
Courtney?
I feel like it's a tough question because I agree with you. I think we're getting kind of a bumper sticker. And I think a lot of times people on both sides will use history to point to this issue, like the example that you just used. But I think in different times throughout history, you can't extrapolate what's going on today and project it onto back then. So whether or not, it was right or wrong, the reality is the United States of America wouldn't exist if we didn't exert some sort of dominance to take over lands from people. There would be no country actually that exists at all. So, I don't know. The question, I guess, was about peace through strength and whether or not that's really possible. And I think it is actually possible, but I think that in practice, what we get is very much what you were saying, a bumper sticker. I don't think we're really seeing much strength, and I don't think we're definitely not seeing peace. As far as just to address, you had brought up Greenland. So I think that's a very complicated issue. I think we can make good arguments on both sides. And if we wanted to be a little bit hopeful, strategically is a great idea to acquire Greenland for the resources, certainly Canada, strategically to have, the land, the resources, defense. I think and Mexico seems to be the plan as well. But we can also look to, there seems to be another agenda that has pointed to a whole North American treaty for a very long time. And there are many of them, actually. There's, the Technocracy Inc., TechNate, which has that exact map. There's 1973 Globalize and Regional Adaptive Regionalization and Globalization document of 1973, which also seems to have that same map. We have like Brzezinski and Kissinger, who also outlined that we would have this regionalization, and they would create a hegemonic battle between the East and the West, in which the technocracy could then emerge as a Hegelian synthesis. And I think the Bible actually talks about regionalization zones of 10, which seems to be exactly the same map. So while I'd like to be hopeful that that's what a lot of this kind of, conquest is really about, resources and defense from a pro-American sovereign type of angle, I'm concerned.
Answer each of those one by one.
Well, the only thing, I think the Greenland thing is absolutely insane. I think it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The only thing I like about it is that it's got Denmark freaking out, and Denmark should freak out. Denmark basically sent its entire military arsenal to Ukraine, and they were so arrogant about it, right? They were so sure they were going to take down the Russians, and now they're left with a couple of slingshots. So in a way, they have it coming. That's the only thing I like about it. Now, if we want to do business with Greenland, and maybe is there a role for the U.S. government? I don't know, maybe to negotiate better trading terms or what have you. I don't really think that. I don't want to pay taxes to help some big corporation get a better deal in Greenland. It doesn't help me in the slightest. But the whole idea that we need to take Greenland for its resources, it's just the craziest thing I've ever heard. Ditto with Canada. Plus, we're going to have to pay. Again, I just said I'm paying my taxes right now, and it's a nightmare. I'm going to have to pay for some dude in Greenland or some dude in Canada? No, thank you.
Well, did anybody hear about this during the campaign? Because I sure as heck didn't. Did anybody hear about
Trump was talking about it.
About Greenland specifically?
He's been talking about it for a
The
long time,
Gulf
actually.
of America,
Yes.
please.
And that was also kind of silly. I don't know. I remember I used to travel when I was much younger, like as a kid, to Europe, and America was number one. We had such great, just everybody thought I was a celebrity just because I came from America. Mm-hmm. And now oftentimes I'll try and speak in Polish instead, so people don't necessarily know. So I don't think that our foreign policy has been working very well so far. I don't think that, Trump's bluster is going to be that effective, but you never know, because he comes up with these kind of wild things and they do kind of taper back a little bit, but I don't know. I just find it kind of
I'll just address that really, really quickly with the wild things. So I think Trump comes from kind of an entrepreneurial background, and most people think about like fire, you aim and then fire, but entrepreneurs fire and then aim. And I think that's kind of what he does. He's like, you refine as you go along. And it seems crazy to people, but it's actually pretty strategic.
Well, what do you
when you're-
think, Daniel? If you gave Donald Trump a grade, right? If you were giving him a grade so far for his first, 2.5 months of his presidency, what grade would you give him when it comes to foreign policy?
Oh, the first month, I mean, I wouldn't just do foreign policy if you don't mind. I do the whole thing. The first month, I was excited. I thought he's finally jettisoned all of these ridiculous things that were part of Trump 1.0. He's finally been freed of this Russiagate nonsense. He's able to act as an actual president now. And he started off very strong. And he talked about cutting the military budget by half. That's music to my ears. That's fantastic. They talked about Doge saving $2 trillion. That sounds fantastic. And it's done in a way that I think the right and left in America should both applaud, because if you care about Social Security, if you care about people getting the money that they need, you've got to shore up those systems so there's money there afterwards. So if some dude is getting 5 or 6 checks because he's faking it, that's great. Cut the guy out, so that the people that actually deserve it should get it. I thought all that was great, but then he just flipped out. He started talking about Greenland. He started bombing Yemen. He gave the green light to Israel to continue slaughtering Palestinians. He told the Russians he's going to slap a 25% tariff on them. He said that he's PO'd at Putin. He had some cockamamie deal with Ukraine that he was going to take all their minerals and force them to sign. Now, there was a comic, there was a bit of comic relief there, because when they took Zelensky into the White House and just beat the crap out of him, that was good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That's pay-per-view stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But then he starts saber-rattling against Iran. So bombs are going to fall on Iran, is what he said. And the thing is that nobody was talking about Iran before. Nobody gave a crap about it. The only one person who gave a crap about it was Netanyahu, because he basically wants to take over all the countries in the Middle East, and that's the last one in the way. So all of a sudden it becomes on our menu. Americans didn't want that. They didn't vote for that. So he started out with a solid A-, and right now he's hovering at a C, I have to say. He needs to just stop taking the crazy pills, get some oxygen, and maybe just not talk as much. Maybe not go on Truth Social and type in all caps as much. Just, he needs to take a chill pill.
Yeah, he wants all the smoke. He's fighting everybody at all times. Now, you mentioned Doge. One of the things that I was most excited about, and probably the rest of this panel here as well, was Doge, the understanding that our government has been at most charitable wasteful and at least charitable corrupt. And finding the corruption, it's only been 2.5 months, but they've found so much corruption. They've found hundreds of billions of dollars. Not a single arrest has been made for who's been doing the corruption. And now Elon comes out and he recalibrates Doge's final tally from an estimated $2 trillion in savings to now $150 billion. That's a long way off. Why do you think Doge has pivoted to that? And do you think that this was our last chance at ever getting a bite at draining the swamp? Is the swamp just too powerful to drain? Is it proving too powerful?
I guess it's an 85% decrease in how much they're going to cut. It was a shocker. I woke up and saw that, and I thought it was very shocking and very disappointing to me. And I watched the meeting where he was around the table in the White House, I presume, and where he made that presentation. And for me, at least, the vibe that I sensed was that was his kind of swan song. He's like, I'm out of here, guys. And I just really get that feeling that he came in, he got excited. There were a lot of shiny objects that he was looking around having a good time. And now he's ready to go back and make some cars or do some more posting on X or what have you. That's just a feeling I got. I mean, going from 2 trillion to 100 billion, we blow $1 billion in a month bombing Yemen.
Yeah.
Color me non excited about.
So why do you think Doge ran into the wall that it did? Like you said, 85% projections. A swing of 85% decrease in projections in 2 months is pretty significant.
Well, one of the problems with it is they didn't understand how to make it work. It was an exciting thing, but it was like a TV documentary or something. What they needed is a real strategy. What they need is to light a fire under Congress. I don't mean it literally necessarily, but they, Senator Paul, Thomas Massie, and a few others said it. Listen, all of this is smoke and mirrors unless we get it codified in legislation. Let's do the omnibus. You can't on the one hand talk about Doge and then on the other hand talk about, increasing defense military spending, which is what they did, and not cutting anything. So you have to codify it in legislation. You have to use the fact that you have a majority in both houses of Congress to eliminate some of these agencies that were created by Congress. Otherwise, I was absolutely thrilled when AID was shut down. I hope it never comes back in any way, shape, or form. And by the way, that's not because it was pushing lefty agendas. No, that's not true. It was pushing anti-American agendas. It was pushing hegemony. It was pushing imperialism overseas, regime change, imperialism overseas. It was just an awful thing. But until, not necessarily true with AID, because I don't believe it was created by Congress, but all these agencies that were created by Congress has to get off its butt and write legislation and eliminate these things. It just has no interest in doing it.
It's very clear they don't want to, and forgive me. It's very clear they don't want to, and I think about Lord of the Rings, where Isildur has the ring of power. Throw the ring into the fire. End this, Isildur, but they feel it. They sit there, and it's one thing to say we're going to get rid of this on the campaign trail, and it's another thing to sit in the seat of power and say, well, why shouldn't I have $1 trillion to play with?
And I also think that when it comes to USAID, when it comes to NED, which was created during the Reagan administration, during Iran-Contra, we found out the cartels were working for the CIA. Its whole mechanism was to be the PR for regime change. Really, that's the main mechanism. And for some reason, you can see the Democrats out there. It just sounds good. USAID. Well, that's providing aid to children in Africa. The National Endowment for Democracy. That's spreading democracy everywhere. The problem is that even though they've eliminated these things or whatever they did, compartmentalized them or brought them into a smaller spectrum where now Rubio is now the director of the USAID, they haven't changed the behavior. And a lot of people on the neocon side, I don't want to say there are lefties because every single Democrat was for the war in Ukraine, Russia, right? Every single one. Even
Biden's a Democrat now, buddy. I thought Biden, Cheney, forgive me. Cheney stumps for the Democrats.
Now he does. It's crazy. They never change the behavior. There's an argument, Daniel, that says if we're not the policemen of the world, right? If we don't go out there and protect humanity, then the Chinese and the Russians will fill that void. What is your argument when you hear a neocon say those exact words? Well, we got to do it. If we don't, the other superpowers will.
Yeah, but what we do is we go overseas and kick somebody in the groin, and then we kind of pat them on the head. What the Chinese do is they'll go somewhere and they'll enter into a business relationship. They'll build some bridges. They'll build some factories. They'll build some infrastructure. There's a huge difference. I mean, if we're the policemen of the world, we're corrupt cops. We go around with our nightstick bopping people over the head and then saying, well, don't you feel better that we took care of your problem? I mean, ask any Libyan right now how it felt to have a policeman of the world destroy their country. The same now that Al-Qaeda is running Syria, they can't do it. Whenever they try to do it, things end up worse than they started, which is by design. I mean, Netanyahu said when he was in DC, I want the Libya plan for Iran. I mean, he literally wants it blown to hell. And that's what we're good at doing. We're not good at doing anything other than that. So no wonder Africa wants to do business with the Chinese. They're kicking out the colonial powers. They want to do business with China because they're actually getting something out of it, Duh.
The final question for you as we wrap it up, unless anybody else from the panel has anything else to ask Daniel McAdams. You did say C, right? C. It started off A-, we're at a C. C seems pretty good compared to, if I look at Obama, right, what he did, that's an F. Hillary Clinton, Libya, that was actually blood on their shoulders. You look at what a lot of people don't look at was Honduras removing, Manuel Zelaya and turning the country into craziness. And then Donald Trump backed the opposition, even in a fraudulent election where the OAS even was like, hey, man, this election is so bad that we need to do it over. If you don't know who the OAS is, they're just as bad as the NED and the USAID. C seems like a good grade. However, we do have people like Fox News junkie Peter Hegseth, who's now over there at the Defense Department bragging about $1 trillion budget moving forward. And like we said, Doge,
I thought he was a drunk, not a junkie.
Whatever. When it comes, this Pam Bondi is kind of like was it Carolyn Levitt? All these people just seem like he's grabbing them out of Fox News, but getting back to my point, C seems like a good grade when you look at Obama, when you look at the Clintons, right? You have Belgrade when it comes to Clinton, where God told him how to do this. Are we headed in the right direction? Is there still something to salvage here with a C grade?
That's why I gave it a C. I mean, I think probably if we were 3 years in, it would be an F. But I think, in one way, they have messed things up. He messed things up with Iran, but he sent in Witkoff to talk to them. I think opening the discussions, opening the door to Russia is a very positive sign. I hope they're talking about the right things. But the fact that he's established a dialogue with Russia, I think probably is what saves him from a D, because that's the threat of annihilation. And under Biden, we were like one bad dream from Biden away from annihilation. So that alone, I think, saves him from an F.
So, Daniel, you guys have been very at the RPI, and Ron Paul for a very long time has been very vocal in their anti-tariff stance.
I was going to ask about this too.
Yeah, so the reciprocal tariffs were brought in. Ross Perot famously said that, if you don't make anything, you can't buy anything. You have been staunchly against the tariffs. Again, we haven't really seen, everybody has an opinion about tariffs, but we haven't seen anything outside of stock market speculation about the tariffs. Where do you foresee these the trade war going? And what is the libertarian argument against tariffs?
Well, I don't call myself libertarian necessarily. So if you ask 3 libertarians, you get 12 answers. So, I don't.
We got
know,
one right here. But
so what is the McAdam-tarian
the liberty mindset?
The
liberty mindset against tariffs.
Against tariffs.
Yeah. I'm a nothing-tarian is what I call myself. But no, this country was funded by tariffs when it started, and it worked fairly well. But they were simply used for the purpose of funding government, and that's when government was extremely small. It wasn't the be-all, end-all to people. We didn't have an income tax. We didn't have a welfare state. We didn't have a warfare state. We didn't have a standing army. So it was relatively easy to do, and it made sense. The kind of government we have now and the way tariffs are being assessed right now, there are taxes on the middle class. Now, it's a tax for everyone, but if you are wealthy and you want to go out and buy a Land Rover, for example, and it costs you $5,000 or $10,000 more, it doesn't bother you. But if you are a working person, you need to get a Toyota and it costs an extra $1,000 or $2,000, that's going to hurt hard. The same thing is true with everything because nothing is made in the U.S. right now. And the idea that somehow, and I think it was Leavitt herself who said, we're going to make iPhones in the U.S. Really? Who the hell's going to make them? And how much are they going to cost? There are taxes. The reason why other countries have tariffs is they force their, and I'm not an economist, but they force their economies to import dollars. That only thing we export is dollars. That the dollar is a world reserve currency, and we saw with the way the markets reacted to these blanket tariffs, quite bizarre tariffs that were placed on. They seem to just be, in some cases, to spite countries. It's going to have repercussions in the American middle and working class that will be very negative.
Man, it was more of a sanction than a tariff. It seemed like he was using
it was a middle finger.
Yeah. I mean, in the spirit of, listen, in Donald Trump's first term, he tried to use tariffs in China specifically to bring back some manufacturing to the United States. Is it the spirit of the tariff to bring back, I think it was McKinley, and my friend Gerald Celente says all the time, what do you want, right? McKinley said, do you want cheaper prices or cheaper products, or do you want higher wages? Isn't the spirit of a tariff? I mean, at least I think a lot of Americans, not just patriots, but Americans are happy that some president is trying something to bring some type of infrastructure and some type of manufacturing back home.
Do people want those jobs?
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just wondering, do people want those jobs? That's the other question. I just don't see that happening, that people are going to go back to that position.
Making
I guess if
sneakers in a factory would be cool. I don't know.
I don't know.
If it pays well, right?
Americans are kind of like, I want to be an influencer. That's my job.
Optimus.
Yeah, but in a factory, not every job is making sneakers. There's going to be marketing departments. There's going to be accounting departments. There's going to be, entire infrastructure can move back here. I think more than anything else is instead of what it brings back here, it negates the usage of slave labor abroad.
It's very really true. It's hard to argue that, Daniel.
Well, all right. You got to pay $400 for those Nikes.
I don't think you are. I really don't think you are, because they're operating off of 90% margins, and I think the American consumer is pretty much tapped out. I think China's going to have to eat it. Scott Bessent does too. I don't know.
Daniel, get your final thoughts then before you take on out of here on everything. What Donald Trump moving forward, the foreign policy, his economics. I mean, I don't know. I think this is such a quagmire. I have a hard time just pointing the finger and blaming everything on Donald Trump. I don't know how you get us out of this problem. We don't make anything anymore here. We don't fix anything anymore. Everybody's working for an app. How do we get out of this quagmire?
Well, Craig, you're not going to like my answer, but the government can't be centrally directing our economy. So if we want to start making things, it may not be exactly what people would like, maybe it not be Nikes, but what they could do is massively reduce regulations on things. And I think, particularly in the energy sector, we're seeing some of that, and that's very positive. The government is best when it gets out of the way and let the entrepreneur lead in terms of economies. And to the extent that it does that, I think is that how we will have economic growth. We may not know exactly what it's going to look like because, by nature, the free market is anarchic, which is great. That's how it should be. So the best thing government can do and central planners can do is just get the hell out of the way.
To that point, one of the best things that we can do, and there's a study done on this, I'm trying to forget why, if government specifically got rid of the requirement for college for jobs, less people would go to college for jobs. And
a lot of companies have actually done that.
And you get rid of I think the average student loan burden in America is $75,000 per student, average, which is insane. So if you take that burden away and you allow people at 17 years old, go work for a place, and if you don't like it, you learn on the job anyway. Go work here, go work here, go work there. The biggest problem we have in our workforce, there's a ton of jobs in labor. Ton of jobs. A lot of people, and high-paying jobs, especially carpentry, skilled labor.
Plumbing.
Nobody wants to do it, and then the barrier of entry to get into it is too high. I can't become an apprentice plumber for 3 years because I have to pay off my $75,000 in student loans that I got to be a basket weaver in African literature. So, and it turns out the African literature basket weaving economy wasn't what I was promised it is. So,
and that's why we need migrants coming in from Guatemala. Thank you so much, Daniel McAdams. We do appreciate you joining the show today. Wake up, America. We'll see you soon. Guys, go check out Daniel's work. We'll be right back after these messages, guys. We'll see you in a little bit.